the other programs that I don't know about yet. So thank you.
Thank you. Before turning this over to Cynthia, I just wanted to make one acknowledgement actually it's two acknowledgments. All of what you're seeing today would not have been possible were it not for the generosity on the cultural side, actually by three entities, but the most important contribution came from the American Express Foundation, the president of which, Tim McClyman, is here. Would you stand, Tim, and let's give you a hand? And secondly, to the National Endowment for the Arts and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. I know we have people here, Penny Ojeda, and I don't know who else. Would you stand and we'll give you a hand? Thank you for all your support. Okay, with that, I turn it over to my co-chair.
Thank you, Frank. Before I introduce Judith Jamison, let me just give a warning to the first panel. Your names are here, and you are Sharon Gersten, William Harvey, John Ferguson, and Jane Hirschberg. I'm going to ask you, after Judith Jamison speaks, to come up and take your places here. So it is a great pleasure, and I will do this quickly because we want to hear from Judith. Oh, first, I see these people hovering. Come in. It's great that people are hovering, but why don't you come down? I'm so sorry there aren't enough chairs. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but maybe just push everybody here. If you wouldn't, is there any room to keep going? I just would like everyone to be able to come inside. I'm so sorry. Maybe someone can try to get more chairs. It's a great pleasure to introduce this incredible dancer, incredible American, Judith Jamison. She is, of course, a winner of the National Medal of the Arts, an Emmy, a Kennedy Center honoree, but really I prefer to introduce her in the words of Michelle Obama when she honored Judith Jamison this past autumn at the White House. It was a special evening just for her where she described her as an amazing, phenomenal fly woman. I think that's something that Michelle Obama can pull off better than me. The only other thing I will add is what the First Lady said, what I thought captured so beautifully what Judith Jamison has done and what Alvin Ailey does. She talked about how much she wanted her own daughters to be there, and they were. They, of course, recognized Judith Jamison as the woman in the picture because for many years the only piece of art hanging in the Obama's house was an image of her dancing in the seminal piece Cry. So they recognized the woman in the picture, but Mrs. Obama wanted her daughters to meet and hear Judith Jamison so that they could, and I quote, witness the grace and the beauty that stirs our souls and connects us to each other like nothing else can. So thank you so much. Please come and share some of your
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That long today, has it? No. The film was wonderful. You know, the internet's going to catch up to us eventually. I know it. But it was wonderful to see everything that's going on in the arts. I'm happy. You know, I made a living out of this. I still am. So, you know, I'm doing what I love to do. And will continue to do, even as I turn this over to Robert Battle, who I don't even know is in the house, but he's the artistic director designate of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Talk about ambassadors of culture. We've been spreading this and holding our flag high for the last 52 years. 52 years. And I've been on the road for 43 of those years. So I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the State Department. When I hear about all the wonderful new programs that they're engaged in, I think about the paradigm that was set, Mr. Ailey going to Southeast Asia and coming back with an armed crooked this way because he was so impressed by all of his dancers. So that influenced so much of his choreography, and my rotator cuffs are totally blown. But it's all right. It's a beautiful gesture and a beautiful movement. But that's where the exchange starts happening as Americans. People come to us all the time. You know, that we're inviting them here is wonderful, but they come to us all the time. And the reason they come to us all the time, part of that reason is because of our arts. And because we've been touring, and we tour more than any other dance company in the world, we take who we are, the soul of America, our arts, the dance. We take who we are there, and then people want to come here. It's like the next natural thing. And we exchange constantly. The idea of setting up shop or having workshops, having wonderful cultural exchanges has been in the mantra of Ailey since its inception. Alvin thought there was nothing more beautiful than to educate, entertain, uplift, but certainly not to just do a performance, but to stay in touch with those people who you are performing for, because they should recognize themselves in you. We should be a reflection of who we're dancing for. So therefore, I wish you all had been able to film us when we took our first trip to Dakar in 1966 to the first Negro World Arts Festival. The third one is just happening this year in December. The third one from 66 to now. But that is progress. But the kind of exchanges that we had there, and there is a film by William Greaves that you can get where you see Langston Hughes, Duke Ellington, Katherine Dunham. All these people are there at the same time with Haile Selassie arriving, on his plane. Extraordinary writers, musicians, dancers, all in exchange there. And to be able to be a part of that, when the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater was only 10 dancers. 10 dancers. I was looking a little rugged back then too, because I had a little Band-Aid on my knee. I was looking rough back then. But hair wasn't quite, well, there's no hair now, but hair wasn't quite the same. We were a little ragtag back then, but that was in the day. Today now, of course, I've got 30 of the most gorgeous dancers in the world, and we do our Washington benefit, which I know you're going to show up for next year, February. But as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Revelations in New York City on December the 1st, which is the anniversary of the death of Alvin Ailey, and the life of his company, an amazing man who had this idea that dance could translate into something meaningful and could change people's hearts and minds. As we celebrate that, I want you to know that those vivid performances that you remember are held in the minds of everyone that has seen us around the world in these, I have to look at the numbers, 23, I don't know how many countries we've been to. It's amazing. Thank you, Sharon. 23 million, that's my executive director, she always pipes in for me. 23 million people in 6 continents, and still counting. I'm going to run down a little list of where we've been and what the exchanges have been, because maybe you don't know that we've been doing all this. We just don't arrive and dance. We arrive, teach. We arrive, workshop. We arrive, get on the bus at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to that township and go to the elementary school and teach those kids. We've been doing that since the beginning of Ailey, that kind of exchange. Also, we have international programs in the school where people come and park themselves in our schools in the summertime in our international programs and study every kind of dance, where also every kind of dance is taught. We've had everything from belly dance to Zumba. Anybody know what Zumba is? Okay. All right. Go on the internet. What Zumba is. They're even selling it now, right? Am I right? Okay. But the point being is that we have been to Russia in 1970, 6 countries, six cities, 3 which were not open, to the public. We went to Moscow, Kiev, Leningrad, Borodyansk, Donetsk, and Lugansk. Some of those cities hadn't even been opened to Russians to go through, and it was still called the USSR back then. So we had people running down the street after us saying vodka after they had seen the performance because they couldn't say anything else. You know? But that exchange was started there. And what do we have now? Constantly rotating companies coming in from all over. 10 days after 9/11, we were on a plane. Unanimously, we voted. We said, yeah, we're going. A lot of companies bowed out of that they wouldn't go on tour. We went. We ended up in France, and we ended up in Greece with people so supportive of us. It was amazing. And that support sustained itself no matter if someone agreed with our politics or not. They loved Alvin Ailey. Yeah. 2003, we performed in Cyprus. Nobody had been there. Then we went to the White Nights Festival recently. That's what you saw where that man was going like this, and he's clapping his hands and rocking. They were rocking in St. Petersburg. Loved the company. That exchange went so well. Then in South Africa, I refused to go to take the company to South Africa until everything got semi-right with it. And then I went. And when I went, I was in tears because I went straight to that monument, and then we started performing, and we were in all the townships that we could possibly muster in the 2 weeks we were there. And we engaged students in the performance of Alvin Ailey's Memoria. 20 students performed on their own stages in Johannesburg, a ballet that Alvin Ailey had created for his students in New York. We've done that around the world, as a matter of fact, so I'm very proud of that. We did sold-out performances again in China. The interesting thing about China to me is that around about, before I left the company, it was like 79, 78, the ping pong teams were hot. Does anybody remember that? The ping pong teams? Well, I had to entertain all those ping pong teams. They would come backstage and we'd be shaking their hands and saying, how do you do, how do you do? It took them until 1986 or 85 for us to get to Red China, to actually get there and do performances. It took that long to get there. And then finally we were invited back about 4 years ago. We went twice to Beijing and Shanghai. Miraculous exchange, students coming over constantly. You know, I've got two companies, and I'm going to finish this by saying I have two companies. There's the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, and there's Ailey 2. It's amazing because we're so large now. We're 30. I travel with 55 people, about 22,000 pounds of equipment or something like that. But I've got another company called Ailey 2. It's the junior company. They're between 18 and 22 years old. They're in France and in Germany now. They were in different parts of the world. But they're doing exactly what we did with the State Department when we were only 10 dancers. You know, it's easier to shift them around, a little bit easier than 55, but to bring 15. So not only are we working with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater on one front, but Ailey 2 on another front, and our great exchange that we have at the Joan Walsh Center for Dance on 55th and 9th Avenue. Come and take class, folks. Yeah, when you're in New York, come and see what the magic is about Alvin Ailey and why we've been able to carry the American banner as high as we've been able to and to represent you beautifully. Thank you.
I wanted to just take, while everyone's getting here, I want to thank, if everyone noticed, can you notice where your name is, Jane? It's down there, okay, process of elimination. I wanted to take, while everyone's sitting down, thank you so much, Judith, and thank you very much, Moira, also. It was great to hear such a fluent and passionate explanation of all the great things going on in the State Department. I want to give the maximum amount of time to the speakers, so I am not going to, if you'll forgive me, go into much in the way of individual introductions. I'd really like to hear you all talk about your work. So I'm actually going to continue with Alvin Ailey, since we're there. And here I would like to know, Sharon Garrison Luckman, the Executive Director, I'd like to know, and I'm so sorry we haven't talked, but anyway, it's great to have you here. And I'd like to know what you'd like to add in terms of what the company is, give us maybe a little more of a snapshot of what the company is doing today. And I always, when I'm looking at Thomas Ambassador Pickering, who's here, Thomas Pickering, who we'll hear from later, and when I think of Alvin Ailey, I think of the performances I've seen, and also what he said to me about the performance in Nigeria many years ago when he was ambassador there, and it was on the same theme of the exchange of information, how the Alvin Ailey Company came back from Nigeria and with so many new ideas of what to do, and what the incredible legacy they left behind in Nigeria and how it impacted the development of dance there.
Hello. I'm always following Judith Jonathan, and I have this need to practically stand up to seem taller. However, as you heard, Judith Jamison, when she was honored by Michelle Obama, she said, "Dance is the soul of the nation." And Ailey, as you heard, performs through the years in 71 countries and 6 continents. And those dancers, Judith of course, but all the dancers have this way, not only what they're dancing, but how they're dancing, to reach across the footlights. And so I think that very much they epitomize the soul of America in every sense of the word soul, I would say, because of that connection. And there's such a way that the audience resonates, their souls, in the very depth of their souls, really resonates with the souls of those dancers in this very deep, profound way. And in the most basic, simplest, concrete way, everybody has a body, everyone's a human being, and we all walk this same earth that's all of ours on the soles of our bare feet. And so Alvin Ailey and modern dance, I think, have a very special role and always have in playing this diplomacy. Judy told you the history, so I won't go into that, but I will say that back in 1962, when President Kennedy first took the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater and as part of a program of international diplomacy, had them performing for 2.5 months. Oh, would that we could do that. 2.5 months in Australia and Asia at that time. Really started what has been the mission. It's the absolute mission of Ailey to be a touring company. We're in our hometown of New York 5 weeks, and Ailey 2's there for 1 or 2 weeks, but mostly this is a touring company. And just this last year, Ailey 2, as you heard, for the first time, our 12 young dancers were in the small cities around the world, as they normally go to the smaller cities in the United States, and the main company is in the largest cities around the world. We've been in 19 countries in this year alone. So we were thrilled. In 2008, on our 50th anniversary, Congress called us America's Cultural Ambassador to the World. And we always were calling ourselves that, so it was really very nice at that point. It's also very much, I think it was Ambassador Schneider who said, diplomacy is people-to-people diplomacy. Thank you. And Alvin...
Many other people, too.
Many other people. But Alvin Ailey said, and this is something that is not just words to us at Ailey, not to the dancers, not to the staff. He said, dance came from the people, and it should always be delivered back to the people. And we talk about that, and we mean that in everything we do. So our building in New York, as Judy commented on, is open to the public and the windows to the public, and there's classes for everybody, and people come from around the world, whether they're serious dancers or they're not. It's part of Dance Came to the People. But the other part is that from the very beginning, before there was a word community outreach, that's what Mr. Ailey did throughout the world, and we still do. So there are classes for children who've never danced in a formal way, and there's classes for adults who've never danced, And one of our dancers, Renee Robinson, just came back from teaching a class where people were sitting down because they were between 90 and 110 years old, and they were being taught by Ailey as part of this mission of bringing dance to everyone around the world. I think she was in the UK at that particular moment. But in addition, and an important part, is we're also taking the Lester Horton technique, a very American technique that is not known around the world. And it's the basis for Revelations. And so often we are going into a country and taking their very best dancers, and we are doing master classes for them, very important. Just as they, as you heard, are giving classes for our dancers, and in Nigeria and everywhere else, we can take something from that. So I just want to say one thing about the challenge. I have 1 minute, and I'm gonna make it. We're asked to also talk about challenges, and I'd say one challenge, and it's a big challenge, is that as important as the education and the work that we are all doing in a performing art form, it's important to perform. And therein is the challenge, because with Ailey, it really is the focal point. The performances are the focal point, and so that's expensive. And the governments around the world that used to pay fees really don't have that money. They're not paying fees to an American company. They're paying for their companies to go abroad. And so now the real challenge is money for a company like Ailey to continue to be ambassadors and to bring the best of what they do. And that takes funding and that takes sponsorship to do that. And so I find that's really the challenge, but it's also the opportunity, because how wonderful to be associated with international diplomacy, the best in culture, and help make this globe a peaceful, wonderful place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Now it's my pleasure to introduce William Harvey, and you're going to see a little bit of variety of style here on the panel. We want to keep you awake. Some people are going to do a single presentation. Some people are going to perform. With some people, I'm going to have a dialogue. So we're really following what our panelists would like to do. It's my great pleasure to introduce William Harvey, the CEO and founder of Cultures in Harmony. And just in case you couldn't memorize all the statistics, this organization has had 19 projects in 11 countries since 2005. He says operates on a shoestring. Just to give you an idea, William takes several people for several weeks to 6 countries for $60,000 a year in 1 year. So that's $10,000 for several people to as far away as Pakistan for several weeks. So you get your money's worth. And he also is teaching violin and viola at the National Institute of Music in Kabul.
On September 11th, 2001, I was a freshman at the Juilliard School in New York City. Many of us felt powerless, devastated, thinking, how could we help when doctors and engineers are rushing down to ground zero? We ended up performing around the city, and that was how on September 16th, 2001, I performed for soldiers from the Fighting 69th Regiment as they returned from a long day of rescue and cleanup work at ground zero. The music seemed to fill their souls, and it changed my life. But it wasn't until 2005 that I found a way to channel this new zeal to explore how music can transform society. I started Cultures in Harmony in that year with a project in Moldova and Tunisia, and since then we've done 22 projects in 12 countries. We have created compositions alongside members of the Yoro tribe in the middle of the jungle in Papua New Guinea. In Pakistan, we conducted an outreach concert tour of schools, and from Cameroon to the Philippines, we have learned from and performed alongside local musicians. The impact of the projects, I think, is best summarized by an eye doctor in Zimbabwe who said about Cultures in Harmony, "You form the beautiful face of America, which the world is yearning for." For the past 5 years, I've learned many lessons from the projects, and I'd like to share 2 of them with you today. First, as you can see from looking at a violin, it's an instrument with no physical guide to tell you where to put your finger. I've been playing the violin for 25 years. I started when I was just 3 years old. And still, after all that time, I still don't know always where to put my finger. In fact, if I played for you now, I'm jet-lagged, so it would be really out of tune. And still, should I give up? Far from it. Actually, I remain dedicated to this process because it's a lifelong process. And I feel that cultural diplomacy is the same way. We can work long and hard on low-profile projects only to have all that work undone by something like the tragedy of the abuses at Abu Ghraib. But still, I think it is important to keep going just as the violinist will spend his or her entire life seeking to find the right note. The second lesson I have learned is that the media through which we conduct cultural diplomacy really are universal. I started Cultures in Harmony with the faith that music is the universal language, and that faith has been tested many times, but it's confirmed many more times in concert after concert, in project after project. And what I'd like to do today, and the reason I have this violin, is to reaffirm your faith in the universality of music. I've put together a short medley of tunes from Nigeria, America, Pakistan, and Austria, some of which might be familiar, some of which might not be familiar. But these tunes share so many properties in common that if you didn't know them, you might have a hard time picking out where one stopped and the other started. And one of the things they share is one of the universal rhythms, the rhythm of 2 beats, which is easy to understand why it's universal: 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. So what I'd like you to do as I play this short medley of tunes, 2 things. 1, reflect on the global community, which music truly does make possible. And 2, let's create that sense of community here in this room by providing for me that 2-beat rhythm like this. 1, by clapping.
Nonetheless, for jet lag, I should say he performed for my class at Georgetown yesterday, practically straight off the plane, and did a fabulous job. Now it is my pleasure to introduce John Ferguson, another example of what the incredible passion of an individual with a few of his friends can do. John runs projects all over the world, but particularly focusing on countries emerging from conflict. And with his YES program, Youth Excellence on Stage, he's reached so many youth and transformed them through the experience of performing together. Among other things, running music academies in Iraq for the last 4 years, bringing together youth from all over that country at a time when they really had no other opportunities to meet each other and be together. John, are you ready?
I am. I'm not sure if technology is. But
Would you like, shall I ask you a question? Do you want to just start, or I'm happy to? You're going. Okay.
if you want to ask a question first, that's fine.
Well, so can you give us a sense, I'm such an admirer of the Iraq program. Give us a sense of some of the things that have happened over your years of doing that, returning to the same place.
We work every summer since 2007, so this past summer was our 4th YES Academy program in Iraq. We love going back to places. We love long-term engagement models. We sometimes do programs where we are only able to do one concert and one workshop, but as much as possible in countries like Iraq, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, we love to go back again and again and help train the next generation of teachers, performers, cultural leaders, and we love to see our students grow, become employed, and start to be cultural leaders in their generation. We take teams of volunteer and paid teachers from American universities, theaters, symphony orchestras with us every summer. We are usually on the road for 6 weeks together, and we spend 10 to 14 days in each country. We spend 8 hours per day working with our young participants. Usually there's 200 to 300 students in any Yes Academy program, so it's a big program. There's a certain amount of chaos, but that simply goes with having a lot of teenagers and college students running around. But we work with them over these 10 to 14 days and prepare a show. And at the end of the program, we're doing 2 evenings, usually one evening devoted to classical music and jazz, and a second evening devoted to dance, musical theater, and hip-hop. Okay, sure. So we got started in 20 years ago in 1990. I got a telex out of the blue from the Soviet Union to go play at a festival in what is now Latvia. And at that time, it was one of the most exotic imaginable places to go to. Very difficult to get there. But we were blown away by the passion the audiences had to hear Gershwin, Bernstein, Copland performed by American performers. We had children sitting through 90-minute-long concerts. And it really gave me the idea that as the Berlin Wall had come down and the Soviet Union was opening up, this was a whole region of hundreds of millions of people that had never had a direct person-to-person contact with an American performing artist. And that's how we got our start, focusing on Central and Eastern Europe. We like to use the arts combined with capacity building, building skills, training the next generation. We have a comprehensive program that, in addition to the training, provides study materials, instruments, and we, as much as possible, try to provide a transformative experience for the students involved in our programs, many of whom, until we've come into their countries, say like Iraq or Afghanistan or certain regions of Pakistan, have never seen an American face before as a performing artist. They've seen soldiers, they've seen diplomats, but never the performers, and that's quite exciting for them. Our signature programs are Jazz Bridges and Broadway Bridges, where we bring in American performers and pair them with local traditional musicians or local performers and put on a Broadway show or a jazz concert based on local traditional music. The Yes Academy Youth Excellence on Stage. This takes place every year in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, and in Thailand. Diplomacy, which is my word to sum up the large universe of hip-hop, breakdancing, rap, beatboxing, and again, working intensively with young local performers and putting on shows together and providing the training and skills to move to the next level. And our teachers really focus on the unique American genres such as hip-hop, jazz, and Broadway. We like to feel like we're encouraging mutual understanding, focusing on nations emerging from conflict and isolation, engaging youth with quality teaching and study materials. And within the countries we work in, for example, Iraq, we're inviting students from every corner of the country. We have participants coming from Baghdad, from Mosul, from Kirkuk, Basra, throughout the Kurdistan region, and encourage students to work together across regional, ethnic, and religious divides. And we feel like our programs open new horizons to youth. Some of our milestones we've reached, I feel embarrassed next to Alvin Ailey here, 200,000 people over the past 20 years in live audiences, and then millions more through television and radio transmission of our performances. One historic concert for us was a concert with the Iraq National Symphony Orchestra in 2007 in Baghdad at the Al Rashid Hotel. And we've made the first jazz festivals, international jazz festivals ever in countries like Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Our vision for ourselves as an organization is to try to deepen this long-term engagement model as much as possible, to focus on programs where we can find funders and partners, where we can go back year after year, time after time, and put down roots and help our participants grow and develop as young performing artists and teachers and cultural leaders. We'd love to do more here in America. Again, funding is a bit of an issue, and the difficulty of getting visas for our students. But we do have one program we're very proud of, which is our scholarship program, where 2 Iraqi students come to St. Louis University every year and work with, study as ESL students and perform with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, Youth Orchestra, and study privately with the teachers from our program. And we have lots of program partners. We especially are pleased with our partnerships with ministries of culture in countries like Syria and Pakistan, visionary foundations here in the United States who are looking to support cultural engagement, like the Levant Foundation in Houston, who has been a big friend of ours in Lebanon and Syria. And we have 400 videos of our work online on YouTube. Our channel is called American Voices.
Them in action in Beirut this summer. It's just fantastic to see how excited these kids are. And I remember you telling me sometimes there are surprising side effects, like if musicians are used to just taking lessons by themselves and not playing, for example, in a string quartet. You told me the first time in playing a string quartet, where they learn cooperation and collaboration in a way they never would experience in their own lives. There are all sorts of lessons that come from this. Now it's going to be my pleasure to have a conversation with Jane Hirschberg, the managing director of the Liz Lerman Dance Company. And let me emphasize that you all will have the opportunity to see the Liz Lerman Dance Company perform tonight. And they are a truly groundbreaking organization. I had the great pleasure to get to know Liz Lerman without actually knowing I was doing that. She turns out to be the mother of one of my daughter's best friends from college. And for literally, like, they're in the same sorority for I knew her for 2 years at different events, and she was just Anna's mother to me. And at one point, finally, at graduation, I finally heard her name. I said, "You're Liz Lerman? You're the Liz Lerman?" And she said, "Well, yeah, but here I'm just Anna's mother." So I'm glad I finally figured out who she was. So please come tonight to see this extraordinary performance. How would you describe the ways in which the Liz Lerman Dance Company is distinctive? What are the particular goals that it has?
Thanks. First of all, I just want to acknowledge all of you out there for the amazing work that I know that all of you are doing, and for all of you out there who have believed in cultural engagement and the power of art and the power of dance in particular. I see you out there. Thank you. I think, the Dance Exchange has been intergenerational since its founding. So it's a group of professional artists whose ages range, right now they range from 24 to 75. And all of the dancers have a deep professional background. And I would say one of the things that is distinctive that we talk about a lot, although there are many, many artists who are doing this now, but it certainly is something that is pervasive in all of our work, is that we have an equal commitment to community and concert. So as much energy as we put toward making a production on the stage of extremely high production value, we make sure that the quality of the community engagement, when we involve community members, which is not in every piece that we make, but when we do, the quality of that interaction is extremely high. I would say another thing is that there are three things that all of the artists in the company, and Liz is one of many choreographers now in the Dance Exchange. We're producing work by 3 or 4 other choreographers. Some of that you'll see this evening. There's always research involved. We are a company that's all about research. We want to know where we are, if we're in a different company and we're making a piece very particular to that place. Or lately Liz has been making a lot of work about science. She's made a piece about genetics. She's made a piece about physics. And I'm not sure what the third, she talks about doing a trilogy, a science trilogy. I don't know what the third area is going to be. But we collaborate with people who can help us understand what those areas, what that is, what it is that we're making the dance about and why. Liz likes to say that in order to understand something, she has to make a dance about it. We always have partnerships, whether it's a piece that's just for the stage or a piece that is deeply involved with community participation. There are always partners, a vast web of partnerships in the community that we organize before we ever get there. Or locally, we have a number of partnerships with organizations because we have our studios right here in Tacoma Park. Well, not right here, but down the street. And then I would say the third thing is our commitment to having an intergenerational company. So those are 3 very distinctive things I would say about the Dance Exchange. And I think there are probably more, but I want to hear your next question.
Well, that is fascinating. I have two follow-up questions, and you can take them one after the other. I think it's been so great to have both of you on the same panel, the Alvin Ailey Company and the Liz Lerman Dance Company, because I think maybe a lot of us just think of dance as dance. And now we've heard from both of them how expansive dance can be. So I'm thinking of dance that is taking on a subject like genomics. And how does that work? And as I ask this question, remember, what is the most popular thing on the internet to watch? What's the most popular thing in YouTube? It's, of course, dance, by far and away. So I think you're really on to something. So tell us a little bit about how dance and genomics works, and then also a little bit about your exchange with Japan and how that works as an ongoing exchange. What are the differences in aesthetics? What do you learn? What do they learn? Please.
Well, I'm going to tell you 2 different stories about the whole research aspect, which I think answers to what you're asking about in terms of the piece about genetics. And one about Liz's piece and one about a piece that is being developed by one of our younger choreographers named Cassie Metter. Liz was asked to do a tour at the Henry Art Gallery many, many years ago about a photography show called Photogenesis Photogenetics, something like that. I'm probably butchering the title. But Liz has developed a process of feedback called the critical response process, which is a way for artists and audiences to have a dialogue about their work. And so the Henry Art Gallery wanted Liz to walk a group of people through the exhibit and talk about the work in a way that isn't just, I like this or I don't like this, but asking a lot of questions about it and really engaging in a conversation about the work. So she didn't understand a whole lot about the material, which was all about genetics, and the gallery sent her an enormous amount of material, a lot of literature, and she realized that the one thing that struck her was that a lot of it was about scary science, and Liz realized that she didn't know a whole lot about genetics, and she didn't think that all of it would be scary. And we came to find out that there's one of the reasons that the piece has so much integrity, and one of the reasons that the work in general that the Dance Exchange developed has integrity, is that there's always a representation of multiple perspectives. People think about things in different ways. When we do community projects, we have a lot of people sitting in a circle, and every single one of those people might have a different opinion about whatever it is that we're talking about. But one opinion is not more or less valid than the other. And so in the work that we make, we try to make sure that there are many, many voices represented throughout that. So if you ever get a chance to see the piece called Ferocious Beauty Genome, Actually, it's just going to have one more performance at James Madison University. It's been touring for about 5 years. You'll see a whole lot about science because we want the audience to understand what the science is. And then in the second half, it's about some dilemmas. But even in the way that we present that material, it's not didactic. It's not about expressing an opinion about this is wrong or this is right. It's really meant to have people walk away from the performance asking more questions. And I would say that the whole process of inquiry is another thing that's very, very important to the work of the Dance Exchange. In fact, our mission statement is 4 questions, which are, who gets to dance? Where is the dance happening? What is the dance about? And why does it matter? So a lot of what we do when we work in communities is we start by asking questions. And then
I'm afraid I'm going to give you 1 minute to talk about Japan, and I'm going to ask the audience to start thinking. We'll take about 10 minutes of audience questions. Do we have people to? Okay, well, we'll take 5 minutes of audience questions. And we won't do Japan. I'm sorry. I can ask about Japan, or let's see if people in the audience would like to ask a question of any of our panelists. Would you raise your hands, and we'd be happy to take that. And while you're thinking, 1 minute on Japan.
We were asked by Baraka Saleh at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in, I don't know how many years ago, to be a part of a project that she had going on then called the Global Exchange Project, where she was given money from the Ford Foundation to work with 10 different artists around the United States and have them go do work with artists in other countries. And she asked Liz to do some work in Japan. We made a few trips where we didn't do a whole lot except learn a lot about the culture. Then we hooked up with the amazing Japan Contemporary Dance Network. I don't know if any of you know Nori and Ritsuko. They're fabulous. And then we were able to get some funding from Ralph Samuelson at the Asian Cultural Council, and we worked with the U.S. Embassy in Japan to be able to do 3 return trips to Japan after that first exploratory visit. And we were exploring prayer. Liz she was making a piece called 613 Radical Acts of Prayer, which basically was looking at the different ways that people have faith in different things, and how it is that prayer and religion seem to have run away with politics on both in directions that we as artists and we as people who are not necessarily politically charged in the way that we think about faith wanted to bring back.
So thank you so much. Are there questions from the audience? This one? Please stand up and just, if you would mind, ask.
It sounds like you've all done a lot of extensive traveling and fabulous projects. Have there ever been any experiences where it didn't quite work out the way you wanted it? And what valuable lessons can you give the rest of us who travel about those learnings?
Well, I doubt anything's ever not gone exactly right, but maybe you can make something up. Who would like to start with you?
Well, we were doing a concert this was when we were in Papua New Guinea in the middle of the jungle, and it was, the goal of the concert was to create compositions with people from the Oro community about matters of importance to them, such as preserving the environment, AIDS, and cultural preservation. And we were doing the dress rehearsal for the concert when this man who was quite intoxicated on a homemade alcohol came crashing through the foliage swinging a machete. And when he saw myself and 2 of my friends, the percussionist and soprano, he screamed, "You've come away to take away our culture and then to come back and kill you." Needless to say, at the time I was quite alarmed, but fortunately he was so drunk that someone was able to take the machete from him. And what we found out later was that he really didn't have any idea what we were doing there, and he was used to seeing foreigners, particularly people who look like me, coming in to take away the culture, take away the resources, and he didn't know that that's not why we were there. So from this experience, I learned the importance of making very sure that the entire community is engaged, that the entire community is supportive, and that everyone understands the purpose of your presence in the community.
As a general comment, I would say that when things haven't gone well, it's most likely because we haven't done our work to establish the firm, the good partnerships on the ground before getting there.
I'm going to conclude this panel, and then you will all have, I think, a 5-minute break rather than a 10-minute break, but you may stand, you're allowed to stand up and stretch and run away if you'd like. And then I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair, Frank Hotzel, and we're going to hear from some of our other best practice examples. But first, I would like to give the certificate for best practice to each of my panelists here. This is for you, and congratulations. Thanks so much for being here. This is for you. Thank you so much for being here. It was a great pleasure. And this is for you. Stay away from those machete wielding. Thank you so much.
5 minutes.
How are you?
Funny, I had
I just need water.